You're listening to Rolling Recklessly, the podcast where dice hit the floor, paint gets spilled, and no game ever goes exactly as planned. I'm Grizzly, and here we dive headfirst into Warhammer, tabletop gaming, and the beautiful mess that is the hobby life. From epic crits to absolute disasters, we'll cover it all. So grab your minis, roll with me, and let's get reckless. Welcome back to Rolling Recklessly, Episode 11, the podcast where we dive into all things Warhammer Age of Sigmar, from the legendary battles of the mortal realms to the armies that we field on the tabletop, and the hobby projects that bring them to life. I'm your host, Robert, aka Grizzly, and today we're turning our gaze towards one of the most important factions in all of Age of Sigmar, the Cities of Sigmar. When we talk about the cities, we're not talking about an army, we're talking about living, breathing heart of Sigmar's dream. A vision of mortal civilization clawing its way back from the brink of annihilation. From the fragile seeds of hope planted from the Realmgate Wars to the sprawling strongholds of Hammerhal, Excelsis, and the Living City, these bastions stand as proof that humanity, Dwarden, and elves will not fade quietly into the night. But these cities are not without their struggles. They're always under siege, from chaos warbands, death legions, destruction hordes, and sometimes even their supposed allies, the Sylvaneth of Ghyran, for example, see many of the cities as trespassers on sacred soil, sparking bloody conflicts even in times of Order's supposed unity. Inside their walls, greed, corruption, and ambition often clash with their faith and discipline. The cities are symbols of resilience, but they're also fragile, always one raid or betrayal away from ruin. Hobby-wise, cities are a dream for collectors. Their range is vast and diverse, from proud Freeguild soldiers and Dwarden artillery to elven scouts and mage lords. No two cities' armies ever look quite the same. Whether you want shiny knights riding under banners of hope, grimy mercenaries hardened by endless war, or vibrant conversions to represent your own homebrew city, there's more creative freedom here than in most other factions. On the tabletop, Cities of Sigmar represent the ultimate toolbox army. They might not have the most extreme stats in any one category, but they can field a bit of everything. Gunlines, cavalry, spellcasters, durable infantry, and some of the best support heroes in the game. With 4th edition's rules and the Scourge of Ghyran General's Handbook shaping missions and tactics, cities thrive on flexibility, making them a competitive force even against the current meta's titans like Kharadron Overlords or the Flesh Eater Courts. In this episode, I'll talk not only through their origins and evolution, but also highlight some of my personal favorite war scrolls, Pontifex Zenestra, the unyielding matriarch of faith, Tahlia Vedra, the lioness of the Parch, and Callis and Toll, the legendary duo turned heroes of the cities, and the Freeguild Command Corps, who embody the discipline and structure that keep these settlements alive. So whether you love cities from their lore, their hobby potential, or their battlefield identity, this is an army that truly embodies the spirits of survival and hope in Age of Sigmar. So grab your dice, rally your banners, and let's march together into the streets of Sigmar's bastions, the Cities of Sigmar. When we think Cities of Sigmar, it's tempting to picture the shining success stories, Hammerhal's twin gates, Excelsis and its prophecies, Greywater Fastness with its roaring cannons, but these cities are exceptions. Behind them lies a grave of forgotten crusades, shattered columns, and names lost to time. The Dawnbringer Crusade were Sigmar's greatest gamble. Tens of thousands of mortals left behind safety to march into the hostile realms. Freeguild soldiers, Dwarden engineers, elven spellcasters, and priests carrying relics. Each crusade was a city on the move, dragging with it the hope of a civilization could take root in soil that did not want it. For every miracle settlement, there were dozens that failed. Some of these triumphs became legend. Hammerhal, the twin-tailed city, straddling Akshi and Ghyran through the Realmgate, grew into a metropolis of fire and life. Yet its success bred endless bureaucracy, corruption, and the danger of being attacked from the two realms at once. A beacon, yes, but one that's always under strain. Excelsis, perched on the coast of Ghyran, was built around a shard of malice that granted visions of the future. It became a city of trade and prophecy, but also greed and paranoia, with factions vying for control over who could see tomorrow. But for every Hammerhal or Excelsis, there were crusades that ended in ashes. The Bleeding Gate Crusade of Shyish marched to seize the Realmgate and was annihilated when the Nighthaunt legions rose from the mist. Survivors claimed the ground itself and drank their blood. The Ironwield Crusade in Chamon collapsed when the realm's metallic planes poisoned food and twisted machinery. Madness and starvation claimed them before battle ever could. Even in Ghyran, settlers overreached, cutting down sacred groves of fortifications, and the Sylvaneth's vengeance was merciless, tearing apart crusades not with steel, but with roots and wrath. And then came the most ambitious attempt in the living memory, the Twin-Tailed Crusade, the heart of the Dawnbringer saga. Leading the Akshian column was Tahlia Vedra, the Lioness of the Parch. Tahlia is more than just a general. She's a living symbol of mortal resilience. Born in the blazing deserts of Akshi, her rise through the Freeguild's ranks was marked by stubborn determination and sheer charisma. She fought shoulder to shoulder with her troops, never asking of what she wouldn't do herself. When Orc Waz came crashing down, it was Tahlia who rallied scattered defenders into disciplined lines, turning routs into victories. Her leadership turned despair into resolve, and in her crusades found proof that Sigmar's vision was not just divine, but human. Marching in Ghyran was Pontifex Zenestra, matriarch of the Grey Wheel. Zenestra represents the spiritual backbone of Sigmar's faithful, but also the dangers of unyielding zeal. Draped in relics and riding in a grand palanquin, she preached that suffering was the path to salvation. To her followers, she was a saint who kept hope burning in the darkest of hours. To her critics, she was a zealot who, rigid in faith, led her people into needless bloodshed. Whether visionary or fanatic, her presence reminds us that the cities aren't just about walls and steel. They're also about faith that mortals cling to when surrounded by the horrors of the mortal realms. Among their ranks walk the grim figures of Callis and Toll, the famed witch hunters of Azir. Callis is a swordsman scarred by endless campaigns, while Toll is a scholar and investigator, always searching for corruption. Together, they rooted out cults, executed traitors, and purged hidden chaos wrought festering within Sigmar's armies. In the Twin-Tailed Crusades, they uncovered cells of worshippers devoted to the dark gods hiding among the settlers themselves. Their presence was a constant reminder that danger comes not only from daemons at the gate, but also from whispers in the campfire shadows. And where there are witch hunters, there is also legendary Jelson Darrock, one of the most iconic figures tied to the city's fight against the unnatural. Jelson is a former priest turned executioner who lost his family to a vampiric curse. Where Callis and Toll worked through methodical investigation, Jelson is the blunt instrument of Sigmar's justice, a relentless hunter who cuts down enemies of order without hesitation. His crossbow and blessed stakes are symbols of his crusade, but it's his sheer determination that makes him stand out. In Cursed City, Jelson stalked the undead streets of Ulfenkarn, proving that one man's fury could inspire others to resist. For the Cities of Sigmar, he embodies the idea that while institutions matter, sometimes survival comes down to a single, vengeful soul standing between the people and the dark. The Dawnbringers campaign books gave us a pivotal moments that defined this saga. The desperate defense of Hammerhal Aksha's vanguard, where Tahlia Vedra held the line against endless orc hordes, her personal valor inspiring soldiers to fight when all seemed lost. Or how about the Sylvan Schism in Ghyran, where Glades aided Zenestra's faithful, while others tore her crusade apart for trespassing sacred groves. This duality showed that allies could be just as dangerous as enemies when oaths and lands are at stake. Or how about the haunting setbacks, entire columns swallowed by chaos ambushes or ground down by attrition, their banners now relics carried by a few survivors who made it back. Every failed crusade taught brutal lessons about arrogance, overreach, and the hostilities of the mortal realms. Every success, like Hammerhal or Excelsis, stands as proof that civilizations in the mortal realms is fragile, always contested, and never inevitable. Now I ask you this. Would you risk marching on a Dawnbringers crusade, knowing how many ended in blood and ash? And when we look at heroes like Vedra, Zenestra, and Callis and Toll, do we see leaders safeguarding Sigmar's dreams? Or mortals playing as gods, their legacies balanced on the edge between triumph and tragedy? When it comes to the battlefield, Cities of Sigmar are all about discipline, coordination, and making the most of synergy. They don't dominate in a single phase of the game like Caradron with shooting or Flesh Eater Course with summoning. Instead, they win by layering overlapping abilities and turning ordinary troops into something greater. Their core playstyle reflects combined arms. Cities shine when you mix in infantry, artillery, and heroes. Each piece alone might feel underwhelming, but together, they become an efficient war machine. Buff stacking. Heroes like the Freeguild Command Corps and Zenestra elevate humble Freeguild steel helms into walls of resilience, or give Cavaliers the edge to punch above their weight. Adaptability. Cities can flex between defensive walls, mobile cavalry pushes, or artillery-heavy builds, depending on your preferred style and the matchup. Some of the key war scrolls include Pontifex Zenestra, matriarch of the Grey Wheel. She's the spiritual anchor of many lists. On the table, she provides strong defensive auras and morale boost that makes your infantry stick around even longer. And when she's not providing that defense, she helps give you that 2-inch movement to humans to help them speed up across the board. But when positioned well, she can swing games by keeping your lines unbreakable and moving your units forward. Tahlia Vedra, Lioness of the Parch. Vedra embodies aggressive leadership. Her rules let you bolster nearby troops and lead decisive charges, with 3 strong melee profiles, and passing out +1s to wound, as well as 5-up wards. This makes her ideal general for lists that want to push forward rather than sit back. She isn't unkillable, so careful timing is key, but if you commit her at the right moments, she can break open an enemy line. After that we have Callis and Toll. These witch hunters are fantastic for a hero disruption. They do double damage to attacks that target wizards, priests, and manifestations. In matchups where enemies lean on buffs, or different spells, or priests, this can absolutely swing momentum. And last but not least, we have our Freeguild Command Corps. Perhaps the most essential unit in competitive list. Their order system adds consistency to your force, letting you control positioning and output more effectively. They're not flashy, but they're the backbone that lets everything else function smoothly. Cities in the current meta. Up until a few days ago, Cities of Sigmar were riding high in the competitive meta. They've already proven themselves with big finishes at events like Nova, where they claimed the crown against a stacked field. They've shown up at the top tables across multiple tournaments, and their strength comes from how well they score battle tactics, use flexible combined arms list, and lean on powerful support heroes to turn solid infantry into elite threats. That said, Games Workshop just issued a fresh set of battlescroll updates. That reeled them in a bit. A few of their stronger builds saw points increases, and some of their staple units had their efficiency toned down. It's not enough to knock them out of contention. Cities are still a top-tier army in my opinion, but it does mean that players will need to adjust. The age of the autopilot cities list is over, and moving forward, the best cities players will be the ones who adapt fastest to these new changes. Even so, their sheer flexibility keeps them dangerous. Whether it's a hero-led assaults with Vedra, infantry backed by Zenestra, or disruption tools like Callis and Toll, cities remain at the top of most versatile and competitive armies in Age of Sigmar right now. Do you think these recent battlescroll tweaks bring cities back into balance, or do you still feel like they're a dominant force? When you build a cities list, do you lean on powerful centerpiece heroes, or do you prefer the reliability of the Stillhelms, with Command Corps backing them up? And with Games Workshop's ongoing balancing, how much do you think City's long-term meta position will shift in the next season? I'd love to hear your opinions. As we look ahead for the Cities of Sigmar, it's clear that they're at a fascinating crossroads. On one hand, they've just proven themselves in a competitive stage, claiming tournament wins and standing tall as one of the most flexible armies in Age of Sigmar. On the other hand, the recent battlescroll updates reminded us that no faction stays untouched for long. The Pontifex saw some noticeable changes to her defensive influence, and the Freeguild Command Corps took a points bump that makes spamming them a little less efficient. Those adjustments don't take cities out of contention, but they do force generals to think harder about their structure of their armies. Lore-wise, the cities also stand on an unstable ground. The Dawnbringer Crusades shows us how fragile these settlements really are. For Hammerhal or Excelsis that thrives, there are countless of failed attempts rotting in the dust. That tension between triumph and collapse makes cities some of the most human, most relatable factions in all of Age of Sigmar. They don't rely on godlike immortality or demonic resilience. They rely on discipline, cooperation, and the stubborn will of mortals who refuse to bow. Looking forward, I think the diversity of cities will keep being their strength. Different cultures, races, and faiths live together inside their walls, sometimes clashing, but often uniting against the nightmares pressing in. That diversity mirrors the army on the tabletop, where you mix infantry, artillery, cavalry, and heroes into one cohesive force. As we move deeper into 4th edition, I will be curious to see how cities evolve. Will they stay top contenders after the nerf, or will they settle into a more mid-tier level? And beyond just the meta, what new stories will the lore tell? Will future crusades build new strongholds, or will we see reminders that mortal realms are ruthless and unforgiving? Do you think the Cities of Sigmar are strongest as symbols of mortal resilience, or as tools of Sigmar's divine vision? How do you personally feel about their mix of cultures and species? Do you see it as a strength, or as a source of inevitable conflict? On the tabletop, are cities still a powerhouse after the recent adjustment, or will other armies begin to overtake them in the meta? For me, the Cities of Sigmar will always be one of the most compelling armies because they embody what the Mortal Realms are all about, surviving against impossible odds. Whether they rise or fall, every city is a story. Every army on the tabletop carries that same weight. Fragile mortals trying to carve out a future in a world that wants to devour them. And that's going to bring us to the end of our Cities of Sigmar faction focus here on Rolling Recklessly. We've journeyed through their origins in the Dawnbringers Crusade, looked at their triumphs and tragedies shaped by their legacy, met some of the key figures like Tahlia Vedra, Pontifex Zenestra, Callis and Toll, and Jelson Darrock, and finally explored how they're performing on the battlefield today. For me, City stands out because they represent the most human part of Age of Sigmar. Fragile, stubborn, and adaptable mortals building something lasting in a world that's always trying to tear them down. Even after their recent nerfs in the battle scrolls, they're still one of the most flexible and rewarding armies to play. Whether you're stacking buffs, grinding down enemies with resilient infantry, or leading daring charges with Vedra herself, Cities give you that feeling that every small victory is earned, and that makes them one of the most satisfying factions out there. But now, I want to hear from you. Do you play Cities of Sigmar? Have you faced them across the table? What's your take on the current state? Still top tier, or settling into fairer places in the meta? And on the lore side, do you find yourself more inspired by their surviving strongholds like Hammerhal, or by the tragic crusades that never made it? Before I sign off, I'm considering starting a new Rolling Recklessly Discord server. It would be a space where we can chat Age of Sigmar, share hobby progress, organize games, and just build this community beyond the podcast. If that sounds like something you'd join, shoot me a message on Instagram or email and let me know. Your input will help me decide on whether or not to launch it. Don't forget, our Nerdlings giveaway is still live for 2 more days. I'll be selecting the winner at the end of the night and reaching out on Instagram, so make sure your entries are in. And as always, you can find me on Instagram at rolling_recklessly_podcast, by email at rollingrecklesslypodcast@gmail.com, and now also on YouTube, where you'll find full episodes and extra content. So be sure to follow on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, and keep the momentum going. Until next time, may your crits be high, your paint never dry, and your rolls ever reckless.